All right, hello everyone. Sometimes I get some emails and questions from students. How do I do the essays? What am I looking for the IDs and the essays before the midterms? I want to kind of direct you to a few places that I've already talked about this, and also just kind of give an overview again to help you. Some people prefer just hearing this as opposed to reading all this. So first of all, if you're still not clear on how to do the IDs, go back and watch the first lecture of the semester. At the end of that first lecture, I do a sample ID with you, right? So use that to help you. Second thing you have is you have your list of potential IDs and essays in your modules, but you also have how to do an A essay, how to do an A ID, right? And that sheet is there as well. Read that carefully. So those are a couple things you can already do to help you. So you have the review sheet with the potential IDs and essays, and you have the first week's, how to, end of the very first lecture, you could go watch that. And again, I give you kind of an explanation on how to organize and what I'm looking for in the IDs and the essays. Also, if it's not in this week's module, next week's module, you'll have a tip sheet on how to organize each essay, in terms of, the kind of most logical way to organize the essay. I don't go into tremendous detail on everything, but I at least give you some of like, this is how you would organize the first essay, this is how you would organize the second essay to give you some specific pointers, not on each specific essay, as opposed to the general idea of what I'm looking for in the essays that you have and what's the A essay, what's the AID sheet. So given all those resources, I still want to just make sure it's clear. So for the IDs, right, you have in your review sheet a long list of about 45 IDs, roughly. I don't know how many there are, from 45, 50, whatever it is. On the day of the exam, when you go and log on to Canvas to take your test, you don't know which ones are going to pop up. There's going to be 8 of them that are going to be generated. You don't know which 8. It could be any of those 8. And then you will do 5 of those 8. Then you get to pick. Of those 8, you do 5. You do whichever 5 you like. For each ID, you're writing a paragraph. In this paragraph, again, you're telling me who, what, when, where, and why. Who's involved, what are the details, when does it take place, just rough time periods, where it happened, if there's a where, how, what are the details, all of that, and then why it's important. Now, how long should these be? Well, if you're writing these out on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, I usually say it's between a third to like 3/4 of a page, right? Some are a little bit shorter, some are a little bit longer. That's if you're writing it out on a physical piece of paper. When you log on to take the test, you're going to get a text box that opens. You have to type it all up. So how long that's typed up, again, it's hard to gauge. Depends on what font size you use, depends on how you write. So I always hesitate giving exact lengths. That's why I say if you're writing out on a sheet of paper, about a third to 3/4 of a page. Some are shorter, some are longer. Another thing is you'll see some of the IDs are not in your lectures, they're only in the textbook. And so if you're like, oh, I don't see that ID anywhere, I listened to all the lectures, it's probably in your textbook. That's where the textbook matters. And so for each ID, you want to be able to write a nice solid paragraph. That's I think the point. You're not writing 2 or 3 little sentences for them if you want the full credit. Remember, each ID is going to be worth 3 points. If you do really well, you get 3 points on it. If you don't do as well, maybe you get 2 points on it. You get 2.5 points on it. So each idea is going to be slightly different based on all of that. So just kind of be aware of that. Okay. What else can I tell you? So you have the IDs. Again, there'll be 8. You'll do 5 of them. You don't know which ones. Just prepare them all ahead of time. Again, the one thing you're not going to have time to do is once the 8 pop up, go, oh, I'm going to go through all my notes and figure out what to write. You only have 90 minutes and you have to do an essay. There's plenty of time if you're organized. If you've already spent the last, if you spent a couple weeks, 2, 3 weeks before the exam organizing everything, you're fine. If you try to organize it all while you're taking the test, you're not going to be fine. So just kind of keep that in mind. As far as the essays, again, you don't know which essay. You're going to have one essay picked. You don't know which essay is going to be picked from your list, so know them all. How long should an essay be? Again, if you're writing it out on 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper, it's multiple paragraphs. It's probably going to be 1 page, 2 page, 3 page, maybe 4 page, it might be 4 or 5 pages. of writing in on a handwritten 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. So again, you'll have a tip sheet on how to organize the essays, as I mentioned. But, really you should be able to go through your lecture notes, and this is where you want to use your textbook material, the primary sources. If all the information is in the essays only from my lectures, it's going to be very, very hard to make an A. If you want to make an A essay, you need to include things from the primary sources as well, and from the textbook, wherever it makes sense. If you're still not clear, you could always outline one of the essays. You could show them to me to make sure you've got all the key points, that you're not missing anything major. But I think if you've listened to the lectures carefully and you really put some time and thought into organizing them, you should be able to prep these really nicely. And then on the day of the exam, you're just popping them in, right? You're just at that point, you're not copying and pasting anything in, but you take what you've already practiced and written down by hand, and you're just typing it into your text box that's going to appear in that 90-minute time frame. So I hope that helps. I hope that makes it a little clearer for anybody who's still not sure on what to do. If you're still not clear, just send me an email. So anyways, I hope that helps a little bit. All right, thank you.